Canada has 10 provinces and 3 territories that many people would not know anything about aside from maybe 1 or 2. In this video, I will summarize all of the provinces and territories that make up Canada in about a minute each. It'll vary depending on how much there is to talk about. For starters, I'll just get the 3 territories out of the way as they can all be described in one word: empty. Although the 3 territories are huge in land area, none of them have a population greater than 50,000. In fact, the US state of Alaska, which happens to border Yukon, one of the 3 territories, has a population almost 6 times larger than that of the 3 Canadian territories combined, despite the fact that the 3 territories' total area combined is twice as big as Alaska. The 3 territories in order moving west to east are Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut, with their capitals being Whitehorse, Yellowknife, and Iqaluit respectively. What makes the territories different compared to the provinces has to do with their constitutional status. Provinces have constitutional authority and autonomy granted to them by the Canadian Constitution Act of 1867, whereas the territories derive their power from the federal government itself through the Northwest Territories Act, the Yukon Act, and the Nunavut Act. All of the 3 territories, as well as the 10 provinces, have a premier, which is the equivalent to a governor in the United States, that is, the head of government of that specific state. The premiers of the Canadian territories are Ranj Pillay, R.J. Simpson, and P.J. Akiagok, respectively. A slight fun fact regarding Yukon, it is the location of the highest mountain in Canada, Mount Logan, which is also the 2nd highest in North America. Moving southwest, we find ourselves at the westernmost Canadian province of British Columbia, also known by its initials BC. BC is the 3rd largest Canadian province by area at almost 1 million square kilometers, as well as being the 3rd most populous, with an estimated population of about 5.5 million. Its capital is Victoria, named after Queen Victoria. What makes this capital city somewhat unique is that it is one of the 3 capital cities in Canada to be located on an island. One of the other ones was Iqaluit in Nunavut. The 3rd one I will talk about later on in the video. In this case, Victoria is located on the southern tip of Vancouver Island, which is also home to other cities such as Nanaimo and Duncan, the latter of which being the smallest Canadian city by area. And speaking of Vancouver, Vancouver is the largest city in BC, home to over 600,000 people. Its metropolitan area contains close to half the entire province's population. British Columbia is known for its national parks and wildlife, with part of the Rocky Mountains stretching through the province. The current Premier of British Columbia is David Eby, who has been in office since November 18, 2022. Other major cities in BC include Surrey, Burnaby, Kelowna, and Abbotsford. To its east, we find Alberta, which is the 4th largest province by both area and population, at just over 660,000 square kilometers and having a population of about 4.6 million. Its capital city is Edmonton, which is home to the largest mall in Canada, and arguably the largest mall in North America, West Edmonton Mall. Some sources I've read have told me that the Mall of America in Minnesota is larger, but it seems that it goes back and forth between the 2. The province's largest city is Calgary, with more than half of Alberta's population living in the 2 cities combined. Because of these cities being the main urban areas of Alberta, they are rivals. When it comes to the Human Development Index in Canada, Alberta ranks first with an HDI score of 0.955, higher than the country's average of 0.936. Alberta is well known for its Banff National Park, which is part of the continuous Rocky Mountain range of North America. Alberta is also the only province in Canada to not have provincial sales tax. The territories also do not have these, but they're not provinces. The current Premier of Alberta is Danielle Smith, and other cities in Alberta include Red Deer, Brooks, Medicine Hat, and Lloydminster, of which part of it is located east of the Alberta border, and in the other landlocked Canadian province, whose name was an absolute nightmare for all of us Canadian kids who had to label a map of Canada in elementary school: Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is the 5th largest province by area at just over 650,000 square kilometers and is known for its flat prairie fields being located in the center of the region of Canada known as the Prairie Provinces. Unlike Alberta, Saskatchewan has a relatively low population with a population of about 1.2 million. Its capital city is Regina, and yes, that is how you pronounce it. I also heard they have a tourism song. Let's take a listen.
Regina, experience Regina.
Okay, I think I found a new home for this song. Back on topic, Saskatchewan's largest city is Saskatoon, which runs along the South Saskatchewan River. Similar to Alberta, close to half of Saskatchewan's population lives in these two cities combined. The current premier of Saskatchewan is Scott Moe, and other cities in Saskatchewan include Prince Albert, Moose Jaw, Swift Current, and the other side of Lloydminster. To Saskatchewan's east, we find Manitoba, the country's 6th largest province by area. Manitoba's population is slightly larger than Saskatchewan's, with a population of about 1.4 million people, and just like its western neighbor, is also not known for anything really, except for its capital and by far largest city, Winnipeg, being home to more than half of the province's population. Winnipeg is the world-leading seller of Slurpees, the brand name for slushies found at 7-Eleven. The population of Winnipeg also dwarfs that of the second largest city in Manitoba, Brandon. A town located in the north of the province, close to the border with Nunavut, Churchill, is nicknamed the polar bear capital of the world due to the absurd amount of polar bears that move towards the shore of Hudson Bay from the inland during the fall. Churchill even has its own quote-unquote polar bear prison where polar bears considered dangerous are held there until they can be relocated somewhere else. Manitoba's current premier is Wab Kinew, and other cities in Manitoba include Steinbach, Winkler, and Portage la Prairie. To Manitoba's east, we find Ontario, the second largest by area, one of only 2 provinces to have an area larger than 1 million square kilometers, and the most populous, home to almost 2/5 of Canada's entire population. When one thinks of Canada, they more than likely think about Ontario's capital city, Toronto, the most populous city in the entire country and frequently mistaken to also be the federal capital. Canada's federal capital, however, is Ottawa, also located in Ontario. Ontario is also partially home to Niagara Falls, a large waterfall complex straddling the border between Ontario and New York State. Ontario's current premier is Doug Ford, and other major cities located in the province include Mississauga, Brampton, Hamilton, London, and Markham, the first 2 of these mentioned being located in the Greater Toronto area. To its east, we find Quebec, the largest province by area at more than 1.5 million square kilometers, and the second largest by population, home to almost 9 million people. Quebec is known for being the only francophone majority province in the Federation, with more than 70% of the population speaking French as their native language. Quebec's capital city is, well, Quebec. The province's largest city, the second most populous in Canada, is Montreal, which I just learned while making this video is actually on an island. Quebec is also known for being home of the beloved Canadian dish poutine, which for those who don't know, consists of French fries topped with cheese curds and gravy. However, accounts differ as to where in Quebec it was created and who was the creator. Quebec has also had not 1, but 2 referendums regarding sovereignty. The first being in 1980, which asked Quebecers if the province should pursue a path towards independence. Almost 60% of voters voted no. They tried again 15 years later in 1995, this time asking if Quebec should separate, with the vote just barely missing being successful, with 50.58% of voters voting against independence. Aside from that, when it comes to the government, the current premier of Quebec is François Legault, and other cities in the province include Laval, Saguenay, and Gatineau. The last of these is actually directly across from Ottawa, Ontario, with the 2 cities being separated by the Ottawa River. To the east of Quebec, we find the easternmost province of Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador. Newfoundland and Labrador is the 7th largest province in the Federation at about 406,000 square kilometers, and an interesting thing when it comes to this province has to do with where most of its population lives. Although the province has a population of just over 500,000 people, comparable to the United States' least populous state, Wyoming, almost 95% of the population of Newfoundland and Labrador lives on this island here, which is named, well, Newfoundland. Here on the island of Newfoundland, you can find the province's capital and largest city, St. John's, as well as the second largest settlement, Conception Bay South, along with the 3rd largest, 4th largest, and so on. The largest settlement on the mainland portion of the province, Labrador, is Happy Valley Goose Bay with a population of about 8,000. The current premier of Newfoundland and Labrador is Andrew Furey, and other settlements in the province include Mount Pearl, Paradise, and Corner Brook. Newfoundland and Labrador is the most recent province to be incorporated, previously being a British Dominion from 1907 until joining Canada in 1949. Newfoundland is also one of the 4 Atlantic provinces of Canada, which to its south we can find the 3 Maritime provinces, which are the other 3 Atlantic provinces. New Brunswick is the 3rd smallest province by area in Canada at just under 73,000 square kilometers, but surprisingly has a greater population than Newfoundland, with 800,000 people. The capital of the province is Fredericton, with its most populous city being Moncton. New Brunswick is the only bilingual Canadian province having both English and French as their official languages, and is home to the oldest incorporated city in Canada. St. John, which was founded in 1604 after French explorer Samuel de Champlain landed on the St. John Harbor, was incorporated as a city on May 18, 1785, more than 80 years before Canada itself became a dominion of the United Kingdom. The current premier of New Brunswick is Blaine Higgs, and two other cities in New Brunswick include Dieppe and Miramichi. To its east, we find Nova Scotia. This is by far where most of my Canadian audience is from, with about 53% of my Canadian viewers being from Nova Scotia. This can be traced to my most viewed short being related to Nova Scotia, which currently has about 65,000 views as of the time I am recording this. Anyway, Nova Scotia, which is Latin for New Scotland, is the second smallest Canadian province by area at just over 55,000 square kilometers, but is the 7th most populous of the provinces and the 2nd most densely populated, with just over 1 million people residing here. Nova Scotia's capital and largest municipality is Halifax. Although the Bay of Fundy is located between both New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, with a small portion crossing into the US state of Maine, this bay's tidal range is the largest in the entire world. An iconic Canadian image, the Peggy's Point Lighthouse, can be found in the Nova Scotian community of Peggy's Cove. The current premier of Nova Scotia is Tim Houston, and other communities and areas in the province have some of the hardest to pronounce in Canada, including, but not limited to, Antigonish, Benyon, Musquodoboit Harbour, and Kejimkujik National Park. Finally, we arrive at Prince Edward Island, the only non-mainland Canadian province and the smallest in terms of both area and population. Prince Edward Island, commonly shortened to just PEI, has an area of just 5,600 square kilometers with a population of about 156,000. Its capital and largest city is Charlottetown. The only interesting thing I can think about when it comes to PEI is Bassin Head Provincial Park, whose beach has sand that quote-unquote sings. Why do they call it that? Well, singing sand, despite its ever so deceiving name, doesn't actually sing. Don't be fooled by that name. Instead, when this type of sand is stepped on due to the high silica content in them, they produce sound, as demonstrated in the following video. Aside from that, the current premier of PEI is Dennis King, and the only other city in the province aside from the capital of Charlottetown is Summerside. A few towns in the province include Stratford, Three Rivers, Cornwall, and Kensington. You've reached the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to also turn on post notifications as well. This is Geo today, heading out to go eat geography for supper.